Welcome back again, Science Warriors. We're here for another flip video here in Coach Jones's flipped 6th grade science class. Today we're going to be talking about the rock cycle. One of the main things we want to focus on is our EQ for today, which is how are the different types of rock formed. Now be sure that if you were in my class that you read the instructions on Google Classroom on what pages to put, and that your foldables should be on for these notes, as well as the short quiz that you will need to take once you have completed your notes that you get to use those notes on. So be sure to read those instructions carefully and remember the steps needed to complete the assignment for the due date. Alright, then let's get started. So the rock cycle, we have a couple of things. We're going to be looking at the first foldable, which looks kind of like this, but all folded up. It says the 3 types of rocks. Let's talk about some of the vocabulary we need to know. These words are important because these are the actual things that are happening to rocks as they change from one type to the other and what needs to happen. So the first is, of course, weathering. That is the breaking down of rock. Very similar is also erosion. Erosion is moving rock sediments. It can also is another way that rock breaks down into smaller pieces. The next term is deposition. So just like the word deposit, these sediments are dropped off and they are placed somewhere. So deposition means they are deposited somewhere. After that, we have compression. Compression is, of course, squeezing together, pressing with lots and lots of pressure, since we're going to be talking about millions of tons of pressure. Next is cementation. Just like cement works like glue and it hardens, cementation is also a process with rocks where things are glued together, just like cement goes from being a wet conglomeration of ingredients to now a new hard mixture, which is, of course, the cement. Crystallization, this is when something goes from liquid to solid, and those crystals are formed during the cooling process. Melting, of course, is just the opposite. We have something that's solid. It gets melted into a liquid. And the last is heat and pressure. Heat and pressure, this is where high temperature plus compressions of millions of tons of pressure squeeze down on materials to help us also form rocks. So some basic vocabulary that we need to understand for the 3 types of rock. So the first type of rock is sedimentary rock. This is the process that sedimentary rocks go through to get made. First, we have to break down sediments through weathering and erosion. Alright, then they get carried away or eroded. Okay, they get moved. From there, they then get dropped and deposited somewhere. Okay, so if you have a rock, weathering erosion breaks it down, it moves those sediments somewhere, it holds itself there. Then over time, sediments keep coming layer after layer after layer on top. And over time, those bottom layers are then being pressed down by all the many years of deposition, and it squeezes them together, and through cementation we get a sedimentary rock. This can take many, many, many years. Things like chalk rock and those little almost like rocks that you'll find in sand sometimes go through this process. That's how those are formed. Okay, so that's our first type of rock. Let's now talk about our second. Second type of rock is called metamorphic rock. It goes through a transformation. It reforms itself. First off, sediments and rocks can get buried over time due to the movement of tectonic plates. So the tectonic plates are the pieces of crust and lithosphere out on the surface. And over time, since they're moving, some of them move together, some move far apart. But when they move together, we get one plate will go actually underneath another one, and that then buries rock and sediment deep in the earth. So the weight of the earth's crust that is pushing down is where we're getting the pressure, and the rocks, as they get pressed further and further down towards the mantle where the heat is so extreme, we start to get a melting of the rock and a reforming of those ingredients in new ways, new mixtures, almost kind of like baking a cake. But it takes the heat and then it takes the extreme pressure in order to make a metamorphic rock. Our third type of rock is pretty cool. This is one of my favorites. This is igneous rock. These are formed from when either lava, which is magma that's on the surface of the earth, or when magma, which is of course underneath the surface, solidifies. We call this process crystallization. Going from a liquid to a solid, it forms crystals in the rock. A lot of times these igneous rocks, they will have interlocking crystal patterns. So you'll have like a crystal pattern, and then right next to it attached is another crystal pattern, or you might have another one go across it. So there's many different patterns you can see. But we do have some special names for the type of cooling that happens to the magma or lava. If magma cools underneath the surface of the earth, that is called intrusive igneous rock. I-N, think of it inside the earth. The other way it can happen is when lava comes through a volcano and comes to the surface and then flows and cools. We call that extrusive rock, like an exit sign. It has exited the earth. Extrusive rock. Extrusive igneous rock, to be more specific. Okay, so that basically gives us a quick overview of what are the three different types, how are they made in the most basic way. But if you can remember those steps in sedimentary rock, what it takes to make metamorphic rock, and then what happens with igneous rock, then you're well on your way to understanding what you need to understand for this part of our unit. Now I want to move us quickly to the second foldable, that is titled The Rock Cycle. Unfolded, this kind of looks like this, has this graphic on the front. Alright, so with this foldable, we have a couple of things that we need to put in here. For instance, we need to remember what a mineral is. We've talked about minerals before, but it's been quite a few 6 weeks since we have done that. So a mineral, in a quick, easy way, is a naturally occurring inorganic solid. So inorganic meaning it was never alive, never used to be alive, never will be alive, not particularly made out of an abundance of carbon, the element carbon. But there are so many different kinds of minerals because of what elements make it up. So they have a fairly constant chemical composition, and they also usually have a fairly constant crystalline structure. Basically the way that the crystals in the solid, how it looks on the inside, how did everything align itself. That's what we're talking about there. Okay, so that's a quick review of minerals. Now, just below is a graphic of the tectonic plates. So if you look here, this is to help us make more sense of metamorphic rock. Because metamorphic rock is hard to think of because we're talking about many, many kilometers under the earth. These things are being pressed and heated. So right here, these are our tectonic plates. We have one that is coming underneath because it is more dense than the other plate. Therefore, it will sink. The less dense plate will float over top. And what happens is right here where this plate is going down, that is all rock and sediments and different things like that. They're getting pushed down and exposed to great heat and pressure. And through that process, that's where those metamorphic rocks get formed. Alright, and now for the last little bit. So right here, on the other side of your foldable, when you open it all the way up, you get a full map of the rock cycle. Now the rock cycle is not something that says, okay, step 1, then go to step 2, then go to step 3, then you get step 4. It actually can happen in any order, and things can change at any time to any other. So if we just start with sediments, okay, if they get, they have deposition, pressure, compaction, and cementation happen to them, they become a sedimentary rock. Okay, if sedimentary rocks then get weathered and eroded, they turn back into sediments. So there's a cycle within a cycle. All right. Let's say a sedimentary rock gets under heat and pressure going under the tectonic plates, it will become a metamorphic rock. From there, a metamorphic rock, all right, through heat and pressure again, if it gets caught back in that cycle on a tectonic plate, it can turn into a totally different metamorphic rock. Let's also say that metamorphic rock gets weathered and eroded. Where do you think that's going to go? Well, that's going to turn a metamorphic rock, boom, into sediment. So right here, metamorphic, weathering, and erosion. Take it back to sediments. Also, we can get the opposite. A metamorphic rock can form as it's going into the earth, heat and pressure, but if it keeps going down to the mantle where it fully gets melted, then that's going to turn it into magma. There we have the opportunity, if we get cooling happening, we get crystallization, we can get an igneous rock. And just like before, if an igneous rock gets melted again, it turns back into magma or lava. Sedimentary rocks, igneous rocks, metamorphic rocks, all of those, if they go through melting, they become magma or lava. If they go through weathering and erosion, they become sediments. And from there, many different pathways can open up. So the rock cycle isn't something you can just memorize. You have to understand that weathering and erosion is how we break down rock into sediment. Any rock can go through that. Melting can happen to any rock that gets pressed down far enough into the Earth's surface to get close enough to the mantle to melt. Metamorphic rock, heat and pressure. Okay, so if you kind of think of it like a story, that there's forks in the road, so that this rock, okay, we've started here, we've walked through our path, now we're at a fork in the road. Okay, if this happens, then this is going to be the rest of the story. If this one happens, then this will be the rest of the story. That's kind of how the rock cycle works. And this is why the surface of our planet is constantly being recycled. It may take millions of years for a particular rock to be recycled, but they are constantly being exposed to weathering, erosion, and pressures and heat and melting at all times. So it's quite unique how our planet is just like a living thing, in that it kind of heals and creates a new surface, just like our skin. If you get a cut, it will heal and correct itself. So pretty cool. Anyway, guys, that's going to be it for this video. It's already at 11 minutes long. I don't want it to go any further. Please make sure to check those instructions on Google Classroom. Don't forget to do your processing quiz. And you get to use your notes on that to try to help you answer those questions correctly. Be sure, study these notes. Do not just do these and not look at them again. It will come back to hurt you if you do not. So anyway, that's going to be it for me today, guys. Hopefully everyone is having a great day. We will see you next time here at Coach Jones's classroom here on the internet. And Science Warriors, y'all be good. I'll see you soon. Make sure, do your assignments, less stress. There you go. All right, we'll talk to you later. Peace.